Beans, or you can plant pole beans, and I don't care whether it's green beans or limas or whatever you're trying to grow. Bush beans tend to stay very low. They tend to produce a lot of beans at one time, but they don't live real long. If you're going to plant bush beans, plant a fresh crop about every 30 days for as long as you want to pick beans through the summer. With that much row of bush beans, you'll pick enough beans to feed 4 people in a meal. You get a lot of beans from bush beans. And they tend to produce very quickly. And so they're a great thing to grow unless you have a bad back. And if you don't have a bad back when you plant bush beans, you'll have a bad back when you get them picking. Pole beans tend to grow more slowly. Pole beans, one crop will produce all summer long if you take care of it. You'll never have as many beans at one time, but you will have a consistent batch of beans growing all through the summer months. So I usually plant some of both. But I get tired of picking bush beans. I mean, unless I can talk somebody into come picking for halves or something like that, I usually end up pulling them out before they're really fully producing. But beans are susceptible to spider mites. If you're going to grow beans, be absolutely certain that you spray regularly with the liquid seaweed molasses. If you grow black-eyed peas, put some extra green sand in because they really do like more iron than most other plants. But beans are very, very easy to grow. But just remember the difference in bush beans and pole beans. Yes, sir?
The garlic pepper tea, is that effective against spider mites?
Not very. Not very. It's better to prevent them than to try to control them. Now, beans and peas have a remarkable capability. They make the soil better. Every time you plant beans or peas, the soil gets better. And our ancestors knew this, and that's why they alternated, planting beans or peas and then planting corn, because corn steals a lot of nutrient from the soil. Beans actually put nutrients back into the soil. Beans are called legumes, and all leguminous plants have this ability to form little nodules on the roots, which are filled with bacteria that can take nitrogen from the air. Every time you take a breath, you're getting about 3 times as much nitrogen as you are oxygen. But, you know, plants can't absorb nitrogen and use it. But there are bacteria, rhizobium and several others, that actually can take nitrogen out of the air and convert it into nitrate fertilizer for the plants to use. And that's the miracle of beans and peas. Now, the first time you plant beans or peas in a given area, you really want to be sure you've got these bacteria in the soil. And for the most part, they're not there. So we do what is called inoculating the beans. I like to soak the seed for, usually maybe an hour or so before I plant it. Howard Garrett's talking about soaking it overnight with a little Garrett juice, but however long you soak them. After they've been soaked, what I will do is pour the water off. I'll just put them in a plastic cup, soak them for a while, then turn them up and pour the water off. The first time you plant in a given area, get some of this stuff called inoculant and just dust a little bit on here. This is probably enough to do 100 packages of seed. Get together with your friends. It keeps, they say it keeps for a year. I find if you put it in the refrigerator, it keeps for 2 or 3 years. But once you have planted inoculated seed in an area, you don't have to do it again. The bacteria stay in the soil year after year after year. But if it's a new garden, or if you're planting beans over here, where in the past you only planted them over here, inoculate the seed and you'll get a whole lot better production. You don't do this with okra, you don't do this with squash. The only thing it works on are legumes like beans and peas, but it's a way that you will get a whole lot more out of your crop if you'll inoculate the seed the first time.
Did you put that in the water or on the ground?
It's as fine as dust. And what I do is the seed will be wet after I pour the water off, and I just sprinkle it in. The seed goes from being white to just black with this dust all over it, and then I'll plant the seed.
What does that mean?
It's called inoculant. It may be under several different names. Use it once when you plant in a given area. Yes, sir?
You mentioned spider mites on beans. How do you know if you've got it? I mean, can you see them or?
The leaf will suddenly start looking bleached out. If you look carefully at it, it'll look like there are 1,000 little pinpricks in it where all the color is missing from the leaf. If you turn the leaf upside down, you'll see what look like little grains of sand on the back of the leaf. And if they get really severe, you'll see a little webbing form down where the leaf joins the stem. If you're unsure and if you have good eyes, take a piece of white paper and hold it under a leaf and whack the leaf real hard and then look at the paper. You probably put about 10 spider mites on the head of a pen, maybe 50 on the head of a pen. But you'll see these little beige-ish orangish things running around. Or you can go out to Analytical Scientific, pay $300 for a good dissecting microscope, like we have on our desk inside, and then you can see what they really look like. Yes, ma'am?
What are butter beans and what are wax beans?
Just two different kinds of beans. Butter beans are small lima beans. Excuse me, the ones they call Ford Hook are the big limas. But there are lots of different kinds of beans, and they're all good. Yes, sir?
Bob, you had two envelopes there. Are they both inoculants?
No, this is just bean seed.
What you soak it in the inoculant?
No. You soak it in water,
Oh, just in water.
and then pour the water off, and then just the tiniest little pinch is enough to do a package of seed. Takes a tiny, tiny amount.
So you sprinkle the inoculant on the seeds after you pour the water on?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it sticks to the seed because they're wet.
Could I ask you?
Yes.
You were talking earlier about root phosphate that you put in blood and can
Uh-huh.
you use that with all your plants then? So all of this stuff?
It's especially good on peppers and tomatoes and eggplant. It'd be fine on anything, but
How about
Mostly
onions?
the juicy plants, right?
what now?
Juiciest fruits like the bell peppers and that.
No, more the things where you're planting a plant as opposed to seed. If you're planting a row of bean seed, I mean, like I say, you can't mix it with the soil. And you can't do a little fine strip of it because it gets locked up. It needs to be a nice big clump for it to grow through. So it's just usually not practical on things grown from seed. Yes, ma'am.
How do you store seed?
Usually in a jar in the refrigerator.
And it doesn't hurt to be tight down.
I leave the lid loose. On today's frost-free refrigerators that are very low humidity, leave it mostly covered if you want the seed to last.
Ziploc be okay?
Ziplock's fine.
Okay.
Certainly. Just a few other things to tell you about. Okra is a hot weather plant that don't plant your okra for a month after you plant your tomatoes. Okra gets a problem called cottony root rot. If you want to stop cottony root rot, if you've had a problem with it, it's never a problem in acid soils, but in our alkaline soils, sometimes you'll get cottony root rot. There is a product called actinovate. It's not as fine a powder as the inoculant, but it's more of a granular material. I always, when I plant okra, I'll soak the seed for a couple of hours, and once again, when I pour the water off, the seed is good and wet. I'll put some actinovate on the seed, sticks to the seed, and that really does stop the cottony root rot. Again, you know, when we do one on this fall on fall vegetable gardens, we talk about thinning plants out. Don't have to do that with most summer plants, but when you're planting okra, thin your plants out after they come up. Thin the plants to where they're at least this far apart, because okra is going to grow this tall and grow pretty leafy. You let them stay too crowded, they'll stay stunted and they won't produce as well. So go through and thin them out. The guy that's flying around is not a bad guy. He's one of the best pollinators in the world. He's even better than honeybees. He's called a cedar bee, and what he wants to do is drill a hole in these cedar posts and lay some eggs in it. So that's what he's doing in here.
Was that actinovate?
Actinovate. Okay. As a matter of fact, yeah. Okay. Peppers. We've got a man sitting right back there that grows more peppers every year than all of the rest of us put together. So if Joe wants to correct anything I say, please do so. But remember that peppers are hot weather plants. Peppers, his name is Pepper Joe, by the way, and if you want to see his website, go to hot-pepper.com, right?
Peppers.
hot-peppers.com. And this guy, what'd you tell me, you have 1,500 plants? You taking volunteers who'd like to plant peppers this afternoon? Anyway, peppers are hot weather plants. I usually don't plant peppers for a week or two after I plant my tomatoes. And if you're going to germinate the seed, you know, germinate it under hot conditions. But peppers are wonderful things to grow here. Choose your variety carefully, because you can grow sweet peppers, you can grow hot peppers, you can grow big peppers, you can grow small peppers. There are some cool weather, high altitude peppers, and I got your 6-pack of nacho. I love chili poblanos or chili rellenos, and they're hard to grow here, but we're going to figure out a way, see if there's a way we can get bigger poblanos in this area. But not every pepper grows well here. Most all of the hot peppers do very, very well, however. The most common misconception about peppers is that if you plant your jalapenos next to your bell peppers, that suddenly the bell peppers are going to be hot. Doesn't work that way. Now, if a jalapeno pollinated the flower on a bell pepper and you planted the seeds that resulted, you might get some weird stuff. But you know, if a Great Dane breeds a dachshund, it doesn't change the Great Dane or the dachshund, you just get really screwed up puppies. And that's what happens when you get cross-pollination. You may get weird things if you grow the seed, but peppers do not get hot just because the flower was pollinated from a hot pepper. That's